Mailbag from Frank Klose is up right now at 97.3ESPN.com. Check out the Phillies Mailbag every Tuesday with Frank, and he answers your Phillies questions. As the 44-44 Phillies are at the All-Star break, they don't resume till Friday night. They'll have a doubleheader against the Florida Marlins. They'll play 4 against the Marlins, Frank. And kind of it was tweeted out the other day by Paul Hembrough of ESPN, the producer for the Greeny Show, that they have the easiest schedule in all of baseball by far the second half of the year. So what should that do for Phillies fans' expectations about this team being a playoff team?
Well, I think they would expect then that they play better against those teams in the second half. Certainly, they had to muddle through a lot of tough series in the first half. You got to feel better about that, especially with the Phillies finally getting healthy, finally starting to score some runs, knowing that you're coming up to that part of the schedule. It should give the Phillies fans, but not just the fans, but the Phillies themselves, the confidence to go into the second half and try to take care of business.
How they ended that first half of the season, 3-4 in Chicago, 2-3, actually 2-3 San Diego, 3-4 in Chicago, 2-3 in Boston, 44-44. What did you see in that last stretch of game with the Padres, Cubs, and Boston that says, okay, maybe Dave Dombrowski saw enough to help this team out?
Well, I think they showed that when healthy, the lineup is still a potent force. You know, the Phillies last year were among the league leaders in runs scored. We've talked about that before. They were maybe 5th overall in all of baseball. And clearly with the lineup missing Didi Gregorius, missing Gene Segura, who if he had enough at bats would be one of the top hitters in baseball to qualify for the batting title. Certainly Bryce Harper been banged up here and there, and JT Realmuto. It's really hard to be that potent force in your lineup without those guys. And remember, they had games where they had Brad Miller in one corner outfield spot and Scott Kingery in the other outfield corner spot. It feels like they've come a long way since some of those lineups that just had so many holes in them, and you feel a lot better about this lineup than you did early on in the season where you had the rotation in center field and Scott Kingery playing all over the place because people were hurt. And I'll say this too, some of the other defensive upgrades like Ronald Torreyes getting healthy certainly helped the team a lot. And you feel a lot better knowing that Alec Bohm might be out for a little while when you have a Ronald Torreyes who can step in and play some good defense and even get some hits lately. So just the overall makeup of this team just feels much, much stronger, and you saw that play out in those 3 series.
Frank, obviously the bullpen is at the top of the list, but we'll get to that in a minute. Let's get over to the mailbag. John wants to know, why are we excited about being 44-44? Is the bar that low for this season?
Well, you know, I think all along the thought for this season was that the Phillies were in a division where they could kind of hang in there. And you don't need to be much more than 500 to have a lead in this division. You know, the Phillies right now are just 3.5 games out of first place. For all of the ugliness early in the season, they're playing well now. This is the natural breaking point. And as you said, the schedule is easier in the second half. So I think fans are feeling finally a little bit optimistic that they have a healthy team, that they're finally winning some series against some tough teams like the Padres and the Red Sox. And the second half is kind of that natural breaking point where you can catch your breath and look ahead. And I think Phillies fans, especially the way things ended compared to the way they started, they feel so much better about this Phillies team. And so there's a sense of optimism. I mean, the Phillies, let's face it, have a shot at winning this division as much now as before. The 3.5 games, if I'll say this right now, if the Phillies teams that played these 3 series face the Mets again next time, I feel like they'll do a lot better than that last series they split, where you kind of felt like they were just kind of meh. Remember that doubleheader where they win the one game 2-1 and then lose the other 2-1 as well. They just seem so flat. They seem so lifeless in that series. I don't think you're going to see that flat, lifeless team now, since you have all your stars in your lineup. They're scoring runs. I feel like that Mets series would have gone a lot differently if the Phillies of right now faced that team compared to a few weeks ago.
We'll go back to the bullpen because this is a question from Rocky. He wants to know, do you see the Phillies going after Craig Kimbrel? And if not, is there a bullpen arm you think they can go after?
Well, see, this is a tough one because I think, yes, the Phillies would love to have Craig Kimbrel. He was the closer for that 2018 Boston Red Sox team that won the World Series under Dave Dombrowski's watch. But here's the big but. I think the Phillies will check in, but they probably don't have enough to trade for him. The Phillies really only have two strong top prospects right now. The only one in the top 100 in the MLB pipeline is Mick Abel, pitcher they drafted just a year ago. Not going to trade him. And Bryson Stott, their infield prospect that could be a starter on this team as soon as next year, they're not going to trade him either. So if you look at the rest of their prospect list, they really don't have a whole lot that a team like the Cubs might be interested in. So I feel like there's going to be a team out there that will want Kimbrel, that have something better than the Phillies can offer to get Kimbrel. So, and as I've kind of talked about before, this Phillies team this year, you're trying to hang in there and compete, but you're also not trying to trade your prospects or do any harm long term. I think the types of the trades the Phillies will make will be trading the Mickey Moniaks and Adam Hasleys of the world right now, the ones that are not necessarily prospects, but guys that could help another team somewhere else. When you look at the teams that are kind of at the bottom right now, the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Arizona Diamondbacks, the Colorado Rockies, I think the Phillies will definitely look to make deals with those types of teams, but I think the types of relievers they're going to get in return are going to be the veteran types that can help bolster a bullpen. They're not going to get the lockdown closer, but what they might get is like a Joaquim Soria from the Diamondbacks or a Daniel Bard from the Colorado Rockies. They're not lockdown relievers, but they're veteran relievers with a decent track record. I think those types of players are within the Phillies' price range right now because those teams are going to need a lot in exchange for them. I could see a team like the Rockies taking a shot on a Mickey Moniak or something. And unfortunately, for the Phillies, he was a first overall pick. I don't think he's going to land you very much, but I think the Phillies need to find we've been through Mickey Moniak, been through Adam Haseley. They're going to need to find a longer term solution in center field, but one of those guys might go in a trade to somebody else.
Yeah, that will be interesting to see the bullpen situation. I agree with you. They don't have a whole heck of a lot to offer for a top-level guy. Do you do a swap for mid-level players? Hey, we'll give you this guy. You give us – you're a good team. You're a bad team with a good closer. So can we give you something so we can have that guy? Do they have that level of player to give away? That's something Dave Dombrowski will have to figure out. JB wants to know, would trading Andrew McCutchen make sense if the returns were? I think we know the answer to this question. But this is the problem. I get asked all the time, Frank, why not trade Gene Segura? Why not trade Andrew McCutchen? Why not trade Didi Gregorius? You can trade those guys. But for a team to take them, they're going to say, we don't really want them. If you want to give them to us, we'll take them, but we don't want to give you anything for us taking them.
Right. I think it's kind of counterproductive if you trade an Andrew McCutchen anyway. Now, assuming that you're trying to win, right? I feel like there would be a team that would love to have Andrew McCutchen as sort of outfielder number 4, or maybe 3.5, depending on who the team is, maybe as a platoon player. But the Phillies are benefiting from having him right now. If the Phillies are going to try to make the playoffs, McCutchen is somebody that's highly respected. He hasn't gone deep in the playoffs in his career. I think the furthest was with the 2018 Yankees that lost to that Red Sox team in the ALCS. But he's somebody you want around. He's been tremendous for the Phillies the last 6 weeks or so. And if you're going to try to hang in and make the playoffs, then you want him on your team. And so if the question is maybe perhaps the idea of a team maybe buying and selling at the same time, maybe trading him and then picking up somebody else, I think that would be a little disruptive to kind of the energy that's been building on this team the last few weeks. And I think that if the Phillies are going to win this year, if they're going to overtake the Mets, they're going to have to roll with the core that they have without disrupting it. And I think if you take McCutchen out of the mix, then you will kind of disrupt what's working right now. And so you hope to get 2.5 more months out of this core and kind of overtake the Mets, and he'd be a big part of that.
Yeah, I know that the outfield in this system is not very good. So, yeah, just giving away McCutchen, you almost have to say, if you gave him away, what do you even have to play in the outfield the rest of the way? That's a good point that you bring up there. What do they do with the back end of the starting rotation?
That's another tough question. I mean, there's Chase Anderson has been rehabbing as a starter. You might see Chase Anderson again soon after this All-Star break, especially if Nola can't pitch. That'll be particularly tough if they're going to be missing Nola for a while. We haven't gotten any updates yet on whether or not Nola was just exposed to COVID or if he had a positive test. But yeah, that's a challenge. I think we did see over this series that Vince Velasquez, when you try to ride him, you can't. And Matt Moore was okay, but okay in the sense that after 4 innings, you pull him. And we've talked about this before. This piggybacking of starters just empties out your bullpen because you use somebody like Bailey Falter for a couple innings one day, well then you're not using him the next day, and then you've wasted, not say wasted, but you've taken up a whole extra spot in your bullpen. So this will be a challenging time. I don't know if there's a team out there willing to trade them a starter, but the types of starters that they might be able to get in trade might not be better than the Chase Anderson and Matt Moore that they already have. So you might see this starting rotation end up being what it was at the beginning of the season with Moore and Anderson in it, and Vince Velasquez back in the bullpen. I guess the wild card would be Spencer Howard. He pitched a couple starts at AAA recently. The one he was pretty good. He went 5 innings, allowed no runs, and then the next one he was just over 4 innings. So, which of course was not what the Phillies couldn't deal with when Spencer Howard was with them. But if there's somebody out there that they can grab cheaply enough that will help, I think they'll give it a shot. But I think the shame of it too is if the Phillies had a functioning bullpen, then you could talk about Ranger Suarez being a starter. And right now you need him. I mean, that gutsy 7-out performance, you need that right now. So I don't see there being a lot of options. Bailey Falter could be a rotation option, but right now they kind of need him in that long spot. I will say this though, Chris Sanchez opened up some eyes the other day when making that. Well, he was not the starter. Brandon Kinsler was, but he gave the Phillies the bulk of those innings on Sunday, and I think he's somebody who could work himself into plans. He's been pretty good at AAA, but wasn't in the immediate plans. But he's somebody I can see the Phillies going to if they need somebody. He might be the perfect six-man. I'm thinking basketball because you were just talking basketball. 27th man for this doubleheader coming up. And maybe he can give the Phillies some innings in one of those games.
All right, Frank Klose, the Phillies Mailbag. Check it out every Tuesday over at 97.3ESPN.com. Frank, I'll see you, pal.
All right, have a good one, Mike.